Hey, Dr. Yerby here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a high availability cluster. So a cluster generally includes several different components that we'll look at here on the screen, including some shared cluster storage, some private networks that are only used by the cluster nodes, and then a public network that connects the cluster nodes to the clients and other network resources such as domain controllers, printers, and web servers, things like that. The cluster storage itself, that's going to be our separate little storage area network. It's usually a physical device that's cluster computers or nodes can access. So this will be just storage. So this will be a set of very fast disks that are intended to store large amounts of data, and then that's usually connected through a very fast connection, hopefully fiber or maybe SCSI or possibly gigabit Ethernet. But the big key here in our SAN is size of the storage and speed at which it can be accessed. And then our clusters will be able to access that and interact with the end users of the clients. So what we're going to take a look at is an example of how to build that, and then we'll look at an IP scheme, and we'll look at the different network cards and IP addressing needed for those clusters to function. So let's jump into Visio here. All right. And what we wanted to do first is create our 3 different networks. So I'm just going to grab an Ethernet pipe, and some of these shapes will be standard. Some might be a little different than what you're used to. I'm just kind of doing this quickly on the fly. Right, so this top network here is going to be our cluster network, and this will be private, that only our clusters have access to each other. Second one is where we're going to put our SAN, and this is going to be private as well, and only the cluster will have access to it. This bottom one here will be our public network where our clients will sit. Okay, so let's throw in some clusters. So let me see, servers, we'll just use a load balancer to represent a cluster. So I'll throw in 2 of these, and then we'll connect them to our private network. Come here, Visio. Using different shapes, these little connectors work differently sometimes. Okay, then we want to have our SAN, so let me grab some storage for this. So we'll just throw in this set of disk that's to represent our SAN. All right, and now we need to connect our SAN to our SAN network and also connect to our cluster. Okay, so we have those connections. Now on our public network, let's throw a couple servers down here. We'll do a mail server, file server, maybe a web server. Where are we at? Web. Here we go. And then we can, let's find a couple clients. So let's see, computers. We'll just use this to represent a computer. Throw a couple of these in here. All right, let's get everything connected. Come on, shorten this up. Okay, move this over so you can see that these are different connections. Right. So you see our cluster now has 3 different connections, and we'll get 3 different IP addresses so that we can access everything from our cluster, so that we again have that high availability. So let's get these connected. This thing keeps moving. Okay. All right, and now we want to start thinking about the IP scheme. So get these things connected. Move this one over. And again, you could do this more neatly when you have more time. I'm just trying to get this done quickly for some demonstration purposes. Okay, so this top network, we'll call this 192.168.100.x, and we'll just use a default subnet mask. Next one, we'll do 192.168.101.x, same subnet mask. We're not subnetting here. Down here, we'll call this 192.168. Let me call this one 100, and I'm going to rename that top one. I just like 100 to be for my public network, just a matter of preference. So we'll call this guy 110. All right. So to connect to the cluster private network, we need to give a 110. We'll just call this one 100, and we'll call this one 110.101. And our SAN to be on its private network, it'll be a .101.100. Okay, and let's see, maybe we should add another one of these guys in here to just show that we have multiple SANs, just in case. So connect him in here. Okay, and then we need to give it a new static IP address, so we'll call him 101.101. Alright, now we can see that this one is able to connect to the cluster network, but we also need to connect to the SAN network. So right now we're going to do to the public network, and I'll come back in a minute and connect it to the SAN network. So let's call this one 100.201. We'll call this one 100.200. Okay, and so now we have those two. Now we need to set some static IP addresses for our servers. So again, this is on our public network, which is our .100. So I'll call this one 150. Call this one 140. And I'll call this one the mail server 130. And then for our clients, we want them to get an IP address through DHCP from the DHCP server that's somewhere on that private network. Okay, so now we can see that these all can communicate. I still need to go in and add the other NIC so that I can communicate from this cluster here to the private network, to the SAN, and to the public network. So now I have all three of these addresses in here. So you see that our high availability clusters, they're able to access the private network through their 110 addresses. They can access the SAN through that 101 address, and through their 100 access, our client machines right here can access it, and also the stuff like our mail server and other things on that public network can still access that private network, right? And then through the .110 NIC, we're able to access the resources there on the private network. So that is some basics of how to use some clustering to do high availability. Thanks, and have a great day.